Buenas and Hafa. This public hearing is called to order. The time is now 2:06 p.m., Friday, February 20th. In compliance with the open government law, notices of today's hearing were noticed on KUAM and provided via email to senators, stakeholders, and local media, and posted on the Government of Guam Public Notices website on Friday, February 13th for the 5-day notice and Wednesday, February 18th for the 48-hour notice, thus meeting the requirements. I'd like to acknowledge my colleague who has joined me here today, Senator Tadegui Stuasmasi. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive testimony on the following agenda items. Resolution 126-38 COR, sponsored by Senator Sabina Flores Perez, Shelly V. Calvo, Barnett, Vincent A.V. Borja, Speaker Frank Blas, Vice Speaker Tony Ada, Senator Therese M. Terlaje, William Parkinson, Rose Muña Barnes. Relative to empowering the Guam Department of Education to expand anti-drug education and prevention campaigns, enforce a comprehensive cell phone use policy, strengthen student wellness and safe learning environments, and increase access to mental health supports for students across all grade levels. The second item on the agenda is Resolution 127-38 COR, sponsored by Senators Sabina Flores Perez, Shelly V. Calvo, Barnett, Vincent A.V. Borja, Speaker Frank Blas, Vice Speaker Tony Ada, Senators Therese M. Terlaje, William A. Parkinson, and Rose Muña Barnes. Relative to empowering the Guam Department of Education to advance educational equity and academic success by establishing an early childhood literacy and parenting curriculum for pregnant and parenting students. Excuse me. Examine the role and develop policies and/or curriculum pertaining to artificial intelligence, and by strengthening supports to mitigate social promotion while ensuring all students meet essential learning standards. The rules of conduct for today's hearing are as follows. The order of those wishing to testify will begin with government agencies, followed by those confirmed in advance, and then by the sign-in sheet. I ask that all written testimonies be submitted in advance to my staff to facilitate copying and dissemination to all those present here today. When you're called on, please ensure the microphone is on and restate your name and organization if applicable for record-keeping purposes. Senators will be given an opportunity at the end of the panel to ask questions. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. And now to begin our agenda. The first item, Resolution 126-38 COR, relative to empowering the Guam Department of Education to expand anti-drug education and prevention campaigns, enforce a comprehensive cell phone use policy, strengthen student wellness and safe learning environments, and increase access to mental health supports for students across all grade levels. So with a brief opening statement, maybe it's not so brief actually. Resolution 126-38 responds to documented increases in adolescent mental health concerns, substance exposure, bullying and cyberbullying, and the impact of excessive smartphone and social media use in learning environments. According to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, children ages 8 to 18 spend an average of 7.5 hours per day on screens, excluding school-related work. This level of digital exposure represents a fundamental shift in childhood development. Nationally, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that 1 in 5 adolescents experience a diagnosable mental health condition. Guam's 2021 Youth Risk Behavior Survey reflects elevated levels of persistent sadness, hopelessness, suicidal ideation among students. Suicide remains a critical public health concern. In 2023, Guam recorded 31 suicide deaths, resulting in an age-adjusted rate significantly higher than the US average. Nearly half of the suicide deaths over the past decade occurred among individuals under 30 years of age. Mental health challenges are compounded by substance exposure. The Guam State Epidemiological Profile reports that approximately 36% of high school students have been offered, sold, or given illicit drugs on school property. Nationally, fentanyl has emerged as a leading cause of overdose deaths among young people. Electronic nicotine delivery systems, commonly marketed using the industry term vape, remain alarmingly prevalent in Guam. 1 in 3 middle and high school students report current use. Nicotine exposure during adolescence affects brain development, impulse control, mood regulation. Guam has among the highest youth prevalence rates compared to states and territories nationwide. The Guam Strategic Action Plan for Substance Misuse Prevention and Mental Health Promotion identifies tobacco use, substance misuse, suicide prevention, and mental health promotion as priority areas requiring multi-sectoral coordination. At the same time, educators report that digital overexposure is affecting classroom engagement. Phones in Focus, a nonpartisan research initiative supported by the National Governors Association, released preliminary findings from a national survey of more than 20,000 public school educators. The findings suggest that stricter school-wide cell phone policies regulating both when and where students can access phones are associated with less in-class phone use and higher teacher satisfaction. Strict storage rules, such as requiring phones to remain in hallway lockers or secured pouches, are associated with better teacher-reported outcomes. Bell-to-bell bans are more common in elementary and middle schools than in high schools. Only 1 in 4 high schools reported a bell-to-bell phone ban compared to 3 in 4 elementary and middle schools. Nearly half of schools use a no-show policy, allowing students to carry phones but requiring them to remain out of sight. However, this policy performs less effectively than more restrictive models. Recently, the United States Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation led a bipartisan hearing examining children's screen time. Lawmakers raised concerns about algorithm-driven feeds, endless scrolling mechanisms, and their impact on youth mental health and social comparison. Bipartisan legislation has been proposed to establish minimum ages for social media use, restrict algorithmic recommendations for minors, and require federally funded schools to block social media access on schools' network. Internationally, developments reinforce these concerns. Sweden implemented widespread classroom digitization, replacing textbooks with tablets and introducing screens in early grades. Between 2016 and 2021, Sweden's 4th grade reading scores declined 11 points on international assessments. Sweden subsequently invested approximately 104 million euros to restore physical textbooks and re-emphasize handwriting and structural reading time. The Karolinska Institute concluded that excessive digital tools may impair learning outcomes. Norway and Denmark are reassessing digital saturation in schools. South Korea has introduced screen time limits. UNESCO has issued guidance urging careful and evidence-based integration of technology in education. Cognitive research supports these shifts. Reading on paper improves comprehension and retention compared to screens. Handwriting strengthens neural pathways associated with memory and learning. Physical books reduce distraction and support sustained attention. Bullying and cyberbullying further intersect with digital overexposure. Online harassment extends beyond school hours, compounding stress and increasing risk for anxiety, depression, substance misuse, and suicidal ideation. Resolution 126-38 empowers the Guam Department of Education to uniformly enforce comprehensive phone-free instructional time, requires secure device storage, expand anti-drug education, including fentanyl and electronic nicotine delivery system prevention, strengthen bullying intervention frameworks, increase school-based mental health supports, and establish a student wellness task force in coordination with public health partners. This measure promotes balance, focus, and safety in our schools. It recognizes that technology has a role, but it must not undermine literacy, mental health, or academic engagement. The data are clear, the research is consistent. Guam's youth deserve structured, supportive, and distraction-free learning environments grounded in prevention and well-being. I look forward to receiving testimony on this important resolution. So at this time, we do have, thank you for being here today and taking time out of your schedule, especially on a Friday. We did receive testimony from GDOE, Department of Public Health, as well as Mr. Orlin, a teacher at Simon Sanchez, as well as Dr. Betances and Dr. Laura Souter, who will present their testimony here today. And we are expecting further testimony, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. So this time I'd like to recognize Chris Anderson, who will be representing Guam Department of Education. So thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman, Senator Perez, Senator Taitigui. Appreciate the opportunity to come and provide some testimony for Dr. Wampat, who unfortunately was not able to make it today. But you should have a copy of her prepared testimony. I know it's a bit lengthy. Her actual testimony is only, I think, 5 pages, and the other 2 attachments are is what's making it a little bit cumbersome. But nonetheless, dear Honorable Perez and sponsoring members, Si Zus Ma'asi for your continued partnership and support of the Guam Department of Education. I respectfully submit testimony in support of Resolution 12638 that empowers the department to expand anti-drug education and prevention strategies, enforce a comprehensive cell phone use policy, strengthen student wellness and safe learning environments, and increase access to mental health supports for all students. However, if the intent is to put this language in statute, I would discourage this action since it would jeopardize the use of federal funds to support these areas going forward. One of the need areas reflected in both local and national data is student substance use and drugs. The legalization of marijuana in 2019 was not helpful and perhaps one of the contributing factors to increased usage and impetus for the Guam Department of Education to collaborate with the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Prevention Center and other community partners to address this challenge. In the Guam State Epidemiological Profile dated in 2021, illicit drug use, and specifically marijuana in parentheses, among youth was higher than adults, and 25% of high school students were current users of marijuana with lifetime use higher than the US median. A 2024 National Youth Survey conducted by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, otherwise known as SAMHSA, showed that drug use, alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana continue to be the most commonly used substances among Americans. 1 in 4, 25% Americans 12 years or older reported illicit drug use in the past year. Table 1 in Attachment 1 indicates a need to proactively educate students on the dangers of substance and drugs and nicotine use. Behaviors under the umbrella of substance drug use are use and possession, distribution of alcohol, intoxication, use, possession, distribution of drugs, and use, possession, distribution of inhalants. So the Department of Education has developed a data dictionary that has all the different behavioral offenses, and they have codes next to these behavioral offenses. And so each of the ones that are listed here in the testimony are the ones that we fall under, or that we consider fall under substance use, drug use. Based on 5 years of data from the department's Student Information System, otherwise known as Power School, the average number of substance use, drug, and nicotine offenses adjudicated by school administrators was 380, males being 2 to 3 times more likely than females to use substance and drugs. This is partly attributed to an earlier school year 22-23 phenomena where there were about 500 cases, a little less than 200 more offenses than all other years that were reported. In addition to the department's efforts to provide drug prevention education, there has been a partnership over the last 3 years with the Auxiliary Services Division, Guam Police Department, to provide a 10-week drug and alcohol resistance education, otherwise known as DARE, program to 4th and 5th grade students that focuses on refusal skills that empower youth to make better decisions using e-cigarettes, vapes, and cannabis. Based on their success, the Guam Police Department is planning on expanding DARE into the middle and high school levels for the following school year. In the middle level, GPD is in conjunction with West Care Pacific is providing Catch My Breath to address the increase in vape use among students. And in the high school, they have piloted a program entitled Protect Your Game that promotes student athletes and substance to help them succeed athletically. Nicotine use in the Department of Education is consistently one of the top 5 behavioral offenses committed by our students. Although separate from the category of substance use, nicotine is a drug, and students can become addicted after only a few days or a few uses. Table 3 in Attachment 1 shows the average number of violations over a 5-year period being 1,399, males having over 50% more offenses compared to female students. Based on the data provided, the Guam Department of Education has made concerted efforts to provide substance use prevention and intervention for students K-12 for substance, drugs, and nicotine use. The department allocates resources in addressing substance use among youth. However, with limited resources, it's imperative to develop community partnerships with other child-serving government and nonprofit agencies to make a difference with students. Below are several key programs implemented by the Department of Education or in conjunction with a community partner. The first one is substance use intervention, also known as Meneskun Famagutan, hopefully I pronounced that right, otherwise resilient children in English, assessment and treatment. This is a service offered to secondary schools within the department to support students struggling with substance use. It provides individual or group therapeutic sessions for students who score with the moderate or severe range on the screening to brief intervention screener. The Meneskun Famagutan program incorporates evidence-based practices, including components from Hazleton's matrix model for teens and young adults, offering comprehensive support through education, intervention, treatment, recovery, personal growth, early recovery skills, and relapse prevention for 10 sessions. Table 1 in the attached report shows use, possession, distribution of drugs as the leading problem behavior among all substance use offenses. Brief tobacco nicotine intervention, otherwise known as BTNI, is a program mandated for all schools to address student nicotine use, developed through a collaboration between the Guam Department of Education, the Department of Public Health and Social Services, and the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, in line with Public Law 34-01. BTNI aims to provide psychoeducational support on the dangers of nicotine use by leveraging suspension days for full participation, in line again with Public Law 34-01. The psychoeducational component is delivered by BTNI service providers at the school and district level. This is primarily done by school counselors, school health counselors, and district psychologists at the central office level. And also to include social workers. For students with less than 3 violations, once a student has 3 or more offenses, a referral is submitted. Well, let me say that again. For students less than 3 offenses, it is the counselors, school health counselors at the school level who are providing the BTNI service. And then when a student gets to 3 or more offenses, the students refer to the behavioral health team, which is the team that consists of the school psychologists and social workers, to provide family sessions. So as the number of violations increase, we have our district psychologists and social workers getting more involved and including the family as part of that solution. Based on the data in Table 5 and Attachment 1, participation rates in BTNI are low in comparison to overall nicotine offenses referenced in Table 3 of the same attachment. Ideally, the department prefers that all families participate, however, the intervention is voluntary. When families decline to participate in BTNI, the parent or legal guardians are asked to sign a declination letter, and the child is then issued a suspension, 3, 6, 9, or 10, depending on the number of offenses. So the first offense being 3, second offense 6, etc. And provided a printout of the BTNI toolkit, which is basically a document that talks about the dangers of using nicotine. Anyone under the age of 21 in the use or possession of nicotine is in violation of a misdemeanor. To help enforce the law, the Chief of Police and the District Commanders, most recently in December of 2025, agreed that the Guam Police Department would commit to responding to calls for service from schools when students are caught in the use and possession of vape or other electronic delivery devices. The responding officers now file a report and confiscate the vape device. This protective measure has been a helpful deterrence and provides a solution to vape disposal as well. That's been something that we've been struggling with for quite some time now, is how to properly dispose of these electronic delivery devices. And so now that the Guam Police Department is responding, they're taking the devices from the school. In the majority of student interactions with school counselors, it is clear that increased nicotine uses in vape are driven by easy access to devices at home or through friends and family before they arrive at school. This, coupled with a dismissive and indifferent attitude towards vaping within the community, has made it challenging to reduce consumption. This is not just a DOE issue, it's a community-wide concern. Without broader community support, enforcement ends up falling onto the schools, pulling time and attention away from the primary mission of teaching and learning. Community partners help raise awareness and address the accessibility of normalization that continue to perpetuate this problem. And so I'll list, as you can see in the testimony, there's a list of various community partners who are instrumental in supporting our students to address some of these issues. So we also have a partnership with Guam's Alternative Lifestyle Association, otherwise known as GALA, uses storytelling for empowerment. This is an evidence-based curriculum that focuses on substance use and suicide prevention programs in the high schools. And this is funded by the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Partnership for Success Grant. We also have Manetlu, which uses a curriculum of positive action and brain power. It's an evidence-based curriculum that focuses on substance use and suicide prevention programs in one particular elementary school. Actually, I think it's Ordot Elementary School, and we have a teacher here who's from Ordot. Also funded by GBWIG and in the Partnership for Success Grant. We also have a partnership with Rotaract Club of the Marianas, which uses a leadership and resiliency program, otherwise known as LRP, which is an evidence-based program that focuses on preventing or reducing substance abuse, violence, and other high-risk behaviors in 3 middle schools, again, funded by Guam, GBWIG and their Partnership for Success Grant. We also have a partnership with the University of Guam that's developed a curriculum called Fuetsun Manhoban. It is a local developed curriculum youth substance use prevention program primarily aimed at reducing e-cigarette, vape use, and betel nut in 3 middle schools. We also have a partnership with West Care Pacific Islands, and they have several programs in different schools that focus on substance use and prevention. We have the Thrive Coalition that focuses on substance use in the northern middle schools and Ukudu High School. And they do help with data collection for Thrive Coalition to contribute to community needs and assessment. They also do presentations in collaboration with the Guam Police Department, the Guam National Guard, and they use the Catch My Breath, which I made reference to earlier, curriculum that addresses vape and other substances. And they also are very instrumental in supporting the Red Ribbon Campaign that happens every year in the month of October. We have a partnership with STEER, which provides classroom presentations focusing on reducing substance use risk and HIV, STD, AIDS in 3 middle schools. We also have a partnership with Maulek Linatla, Life is Good, provides classroom presentations using an evidence-based positive action curriculum, and this curriculum aims to reduce and prevent drugs, alcohol, nicotine at 1 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school. And then I mentioned GBWIG earlier, but some other programs that GBWIG is providing support with our Department of Education schools. We have Project Terlaje that provides healthy transition services for youth and young adults ages 16 to 25 with serious emotional disturbances or serious mental illness to include substance use at JP Torres Academy. And just to qualify, that program is no longer in service, but it was, I believe, last year. We also have Project Link, and this is also not in place, but this particular project focuses on mental health services for students ages 5 to 17 who've experienced or are at risk of homelessness in all 39 schools. And so the Department of Education will be taking on this project specifically, at least the services, with the McKinney-Vento Act. The homeless youth are entitled to various mental health services, and so with our district psychologists and our social workers, we are going to be actively working with all the students who are identified in this particular category. And then lastly, we have TOGI Incorporated, stands for Transforming Ourselves Through Healing, Growth, and Enrichment, that provide presentations on the effects of substance use and peer support. A safe learning environment is both fundamental and essential to students attending school daily and excelling academically. To this end, Standard Operating Procedure 1200-018, the title being Student Conduct Procedural Manual, provides guidance to all schools in the implementation of positive behavior intervention supports as the foundation for establishing a positive school climate, establishing behavioral expectations, and developing a standardized process for addressing student conduct. Currently, PBIS is the framework used in all 39 schools. However, only 59% of the schools have met the goal of 70% on their tier fidelity inventory. The Department of Education since 2012 has invested in mental health supports by establishing a behavioral health services team comprised of licensed psychologists and social workers under the Student Support Service Division, which is what I lead. Research shows that mental health supports for students are a crucial support requirement across gender and race. The Behavioral Health Services team uses a multi-tiered system to support students' mental health. Tier 1 involves universal strategies and supports. Tier 2 offers targeted interventions. And Tier 3 provides intensive, individualized interventions for students with significant learning or behavioral challenges, often involving specialized personnel or programs. And you can refer to Attachment 2 for a detailed description of the intervention services, processes, caseload, and activity from the Behavioral Health Services team. Behavioral health services consist of 3 areas of care: psychological services, school-based behavioral health, and enhancing your mental health state. Psychological services include psychological evaluations, providing mental health diagnoses, and creating treatment recommendations. School-based behavioral health is designed to provide students with therapeutic services that foster positive student connections with peers, family, school, and community. The Enhancing Your Mental Health State is a pilot program in 8 secondary schools designed to screen students in need of mental health and substance use services through the use of universal screening tools. The goal is to identify Tier 2 and 3 students who may be experiencing mental health challenges and provide targeted support through case management and therapeutic counseling. Table 1 in Attachment 2 provides 4 years of data disaggregated by referral services and the number of students served. One of the key highlights in the data is the requirement to wait 45 days before screening students based on Public Law 31-202. And unfortunately, the attrition rate from orientation to screening is actually a problem. To address this issue, the department is currently working with Senator Borja to introduce changes to the law. The intent is to provide the Enhancing Your Mental Health State in all schools for the following school year. Student cell phone use in schools across the United States is being debated as to whether they help or hinder academic learning. The Guam Education Board conducted work sessions in 2025 to review Board Policy 406 to help answer this question. The GEB voted to continue student cell phone use with the nominal change to clarify when it's appropriate for students to use cell phones in the classroom. The Department of Education reviewed and also updated Standard Operating Procedure 1200-03, entitled Cell Phone and Other Electronic Devices Usage, also in 2025. It's a typo there. It says 2005, but it should be 2025. The SOP mirrors Board Policy 406 with additional language that added other wireless communication devices in the context of cell phones that have to be stored in a locker, backpack, or bag out of sight and not easily accessible when not in a part of the teacher's lesson plan. Guam's youth are inundated with life-altering decisions that can negatively impact their academic success and motivation to complete their education. The programs and source documents referenced above promote safe learning environments and empower students to make healthier choices and successfully navigate through potential storms. On behalf of the department, I thank the 38th Guam Legislature for introducing Resolution 126-38 and acknowledging the need to collaborate across all sectors of Guam to provide opportunities for students to succeed and become productive members of society. Again, si Zusmasi for your continued partnership in education. Sinceramente, Dr. Judith Wampat, Acting Superintendent of Education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anderson, for your very thorough testimony. We will have questions, but I would like to just continue with the testimonies. So I'd like to, at this time, recognize Senator Shelton, Deputy Director of Department of Public Health, for Department of Public Health's testimony.
Sidus Masi, Senator Perez. I am reading testimony today on behalf of Director Teresa Areola. For the record, I am Amanda Shelton. Hafide, Senator Sabina Flores Perez, and honorable members of the 38th Guam Legislature. The Division of Children's Wellness under the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services respectfully submits this testimony in support of Resolution Number 126-38 COR. DCW was established on January 1st, 2022 via Executive Order 2021-026 to respond to the needs of Guam's children and to streamline services in addressing the care and well-being of our island's children. The resolution would strengthen student wellness by integrating prevention education, minimizing distractions to improve engagement, and expand on-site mental health services. From a public health and social services perspective, prevention and early intervention are essential strategies in reducing substance abuse, addressing behavioral health challenges, and fostering resilience among children and youth. Schools serve as critical settings for health promotion, and coordinated efforts between education and public health and social service systems are key to achieving long-term positive outcomes for students. This resolution reflects a proactive, prevention-focused approach that aligns with DCW's mission, which is to protect the children of Guam, strengthen family foundations, and foster school readiness by promoting and maintaining a system of accessible, high-quality child care services island-wide. We respectfully urge the adoption of Resolution Number 126-38 and thank you for your continued leadership in advancing policies that safeguard and promote the health of Guam's children and families. Sidus Masi for this opportunity to provide testimony. Signed, Director C. Areola.
Sidus Masi, Deputy Director, on behalf of the Director of Department of Public Health, for your testimony. Definitely, if you could stay, we have questions potentially for later. At this time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Matilda Napati Rivera. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you. Sidus Masi. Hafaday, Honorable Senator Perez, Honorable Senator Taitagui, and all. I wholeheartedly support Resolution Number 126-38 and Resolution Number 127-38. These resolutions collectively aim to strengthen the Guam Department of Education's capacity to promote student wellness, educational equity, and academic success across all grade levels. As an educator and advocate for lifelong learning and student well-being, I commend these resolutions for addressing critical areas that directly impact our youth and ultimately the future of our island. In particular, Resolution Number 126-38 takes a proactive and holistic approach to student health and safety by expanding anti-drug education and prevention campaigns, enforcing a comprehensive cell phone use policy, and increasing access to mental health supports. These initiatives are essential to fostering safe, focused, and supportive learning environments. In today's world, students face growing pressures from social media, peer influence, and mental health challenges. By equipping schools with the resources and policies to address these issues head-on, we empower students to make healthier choices and thrive academically and emotionally. In addition, Resolution Number 127-38 complements this mission by advancing educational equity and academic success. Its focus on early childhood literacy and parenting curriculum for pregnant and parenting students demonstrates a compassionate and inclusive vision for education, one that ensures every student, regardless of circumstance, has the opportunity to succeed. Additionally, the resolution's call to examine the role of artificial intelligence in education is both timely and forward-thinking. Integrating AI responsibly into our curriculum can enhance learning experiences, prepare students for a rapidly evolving workforce, and ensure Guam remains competitive in a global, technology-driven society. Furthermore, the resolution's emphasis on mitigating social promotion while ensuring mastery of essential learning standards underscores the importance of quality over quantity in education. Every student deserves the chance to reach their full potential, and these measures will help ensure that academic progress truly reflects learning and growth. Together, these resolutions represent a comprehensive commitment to the academic, emotional, and social well-being of Guam students. By supporting them, we are investing not only in our children's education, but also in the long-term health, safety, and prosperity of our island community. I respectfully urge the committee to adopt Resolution number 126-38 and Resolution number 127-38 in recognition of their shared vision to empower our schools, support our students, and strengthen the foundation of education in Guam. Si Diyos maasi, salamat, arigato, kiniso, kalangan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Napati, for
Just
your
Marcy.
testimony. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Laura Sauter and Dr. Betances for his testimony. Si Diyos maasi.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Dr. Samuel Betances. My wife, an educational consulting partner, Dr. Laura Sauter, and I support resolution number 126-38. As educators, authors, and advocates for student success in Guam's public, private, and charter schools, we support the goal that GDOE should expand its anti-drug education and prevention campaign and adopt a policy for responsible cell phone use by students in schools. There are evidence-based practices that document that scare and fear tactics may not work in reducing drug use. To exaggerate the harmful effects of substance abuse, devoid of factual evidence and feasible consequences, makes the messaging less effective. For example, the R Street website has a valuable article about the type of messaging that works. So if you Google fear-based messaging doesn't stop drug use, but it does make things worse, you'll find another source which states the following, quote, "It's actually more effective to move youth towards something positive than away from something negative." Addressing the responsible cell phone use in school is an urgent challenge as well. A study by the Journal of the American Medical Association Pediatrics in 2017 presented evidence that, quote, that teens who used their smartphones in the hours before bed were more likely to experience poor sleep quality and shorter sleep duration, which in turn can lead to mood disorders and cognitive impairments, end quote. When developing policy, referred to the Center for American Progress, CAP, the Center for American Progress website. They put out a very useful source for information on what types of policies have been adopted throughout the country. An article published earlier this month in 2026 entitled 10 Policy Recommendations to Address Cell Phone Use in Schools provides valuable insights which can be applied to Guam schools. There are many benefits for smartphones used by students. However, authority sources conclude, quote, the risk of cell phone use in schools are greater than the benefits, end of quote. Consequently, a standard usage policy is needed. Clearly, the safety and mental well-being of students impacts their capacity to learn and perform successfully in school settings. The recommendations contained in this resolution will contribute to that end. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Masi, Dr. Patansis, for that information, and hopefully we can include that with DOE's for them to consider. But yeah, at this time, I do want to recognize Dr. Laura Sauter. I believe you have testimony as well on behalf of Commission.
The Commission, if you know, Zamora supports both resolutions, Senator, 126 and 127-38, but I do have testimony for 127-38 when you're ready.
Appreciate that. We'll postpone that till later. So I do, I believe, Senator Tadigui, you want to start with the questioning because I know you have to go at this time. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Senator. And thank you so much for always be an advocate for our children at school. Being a teacher, of course, you have firsthand knowledge of the issues that many children face. And of course, with the technology now, it just makes it even more difficult to keep kids focused, not just on their schoolworks, but, it also does some mental concerns damage to children too, because they tend to not think for themselves anymore. That social media tells them how to think and what to think about. So they're very vulnerable and very easily manipulated to think that they can't do something, or if they can do something. And it can be very harmful. I appreciate your testimony, Mr. Anderson, regarding everything that I know that you had a hand in that testimony. I'm pretty sure not just from, Dr. Underwood, because, that there's behind a good woman, there's always a good staff, to put things through. So I appreciate your work in that. A lot of data and information that's very helpful. I mean, we're all keeping eyes on what other countries are doing besides the United States when it comes to social media and how AI is being integrated and how it's going to harm our children. We saw that Australia has made the first push against any social media from 16 years and below. Spain has just followed recently, implementing that law that anybody under the age of 16 looking at social media is prohibited by law. So you're looking these changes, and then just recently I saw an article on a camp sending our children to these camps to detox from their phones. And it's just an amazing camp and how they're doing it and how addicted our kids are to this. So we need to step up before AI even finds another avenue of distraction, of teaching our children to think for themselves, to learn on their own, and to be more, to research information and not just think that they can press a button and it's done for them. So I'm greatly in support of this legislation, as well as 127. I have to leave for another meeting, but greatly appreciate everyone that's here this afternoon. And thank you for your contributions too to our island by being here. And Bipa Betness. Thank you so much.
This is Masi, Senator Tadigui, for your contributions. And I know there's going to be an AI task force meeting coming up, and I would definitely ask to extend that to those that are interested in this today. Okay, so now I just want to turn to DOE's testimony. First of all, thank you. Thank you for the amount of work and I guess diligence in addressing such a deep issue, the mental health of our students. And I mean, I could see the amount of work that you put into, as far as DOE has put into, to try to bridge the gap in regards to mental health, substance use, addiction. So I just have a couple questions. I didn't get a chance to really thoroughly review your testimony, but the ones that popped out are prevention. So obviously, we want to be able to prevent students before they even become addicted. And can you just reiterate which programs are dedicated to that within DOE, and how uniformly is it practiced throughout the school system?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I would like to say that all of the programs that we have in place can both be preventive and reactive. I mean, we do make a concerted effort to go out there and talk to the kids about, and young adults, of course, with the dangers of using substances, and more specifically nicotine, because that seems to be one of our biggest issues in the Department of Education. But one thing that we do stress with our school administrators is to leverage suspension days when students, of course, trip on themselves and get in trouble for the use of substances in school. And so it's both, on the preventive side, I think both of these programs that we have in our schools are focused in that area. But again, when students do get in trouble for use or possession of substances, then of course we all try and leverage suspension days to get parents and their students to participate in these programs. And again, the participation rate, varies, I think, from school to school in terms of how many students and families want to actually participate.
Yeah, I think that's really key, right? To catch them before they get, addicted. And unfortunately, we, the DOE, or at least our youth, have the highest rates of addiction for nicotine use. The other thing that came to light was the emotional intelligence curriculum. I know was developed by the judiciary.
Yes.
And I believe the former deputy Joe Sanchez, was implementing that. And is it listed here in your testimony? And I just wanted to see what has been the outcome of that implementation.
Thank you for that. You're right. We did not make reference to EQ in the testimony. My understanding was the pilot study was successful. They found the schools that piloted the program found that it did make a difference. However, I think with the current management, the focus is on evidence-based practices, and at this point, that program is not evidence-based, and so the department is looking at other substance use programs that are evidence-based, and there's a list from, I think, CASIL that lists different programs. And so right now, my understanding is the Deputy for Educational Support, Deputy Kittigwa, and also the Curriculum Deputy, Dr. Lewig, is working with different groups from the elementary, middle, and high school to look at different programs and then make a choice. And I think one of them that seems to be getting a lot of traction is Character Strong. And so I think the understanding is that both are not needed, and their focus, they prefer to move in the direction of an evidence-based curriculum.
Okay. And so this Character Strong, do you think that would play a significant role in prevention? Because my understanding from EQ is that it basically strengthens the individual's capability to cope, right, and to deal with challenges. So rather than smoke or take drugs, they have a way to cope that's healthy. If you can maybe expound on that.
No, good point. I actually have not familiarized myself with Character Strong, and I wasn't part of the EQ pilot study, but one of my staff, Nadine Cepeda, she's our lead psychologist for the Behavioral Health Services team, was part of the EQ study. And so we can definitely do that and get back to you in terms of, where the Character Strong program, how successful is it in addressing that issue.
Okay, thank you. I have a question in your testimony. You said currently the PBIS is a framework used in all 39 schools. However, only 59% of schools have met the goal of 70% on the tier fidelity inventory. Can you explain that?
Yeah, in the spirit of full transparency. Yes, so every year we have PBIS coaches that go out and help measure the level of fidelity. So I mean, again, PBIS is part of our, I mean, if you look at the Student Conduct Procedural Manual, which I made reference to or was in the testimony, that is the procedural manual for how we deal with student conduct across the district. So it's a uniform across. It basically, indicates that that's how we're going to address conduct. And so, but you have different components of that, PBIS, and some components may be a little bit more harder than others to get in place and entrenched into the classrooms. So one of them, obviously, is to establish expected school-wide behaviors. And most of the schools have, if you go into the schools, you'll see a be safe, be respectful, be responsible. And then the schools work with the kids to identify what that looks like in the classroom, in the cafeteria, at the bus stop, at home, et cetera. But in high school, that's not very easy to get across. So I think, without looking at it closely, to know which of the schools have not met that 70%. So that's the goal, is to have all PBIS schools at least at 70% fidelity. Obviously, it would be better if it's higher than that, but 70% is the goal, and we're still working at the secondary levels to get more buy-in from the schools to be a little bit more faithful in the implementation of that. But it's got a lot of promise, because again, if we want our students to behave a certain way, we should model that behavior, for one, and two, teach those expected behaviors. The other part of it, which I think we actually do a much better job at, is the universal application of student discipline. So in secondary, we've grouped the behaviors in level of severity. And so we have levels 1, 2, and 3, 3 being the most egregious and criminal in nature. And then we've also grouped different interventions and actions that are appropriate to that level. And so it doesn't matter whether you're a student at UCADU or a student at GW, if you have, if you've done something that's in violation of a school policy or rule, the action taken is pretty much uniformly applied across. I mean, there is some obvious variation. Administrators have flexibility in how they assign discipline, but for the most part, it is uniformly applied, across. And so I made reference to a data dictionary. So again, the operational definitions for all the different behaviors that our students have exhibited, those are defined so that, again, when an administrator is adjudicating a student for a behavioral offense, they can look to make sure that the citation of the behavior is accurate based on how we define that, and then, of course, assign an appropriate weighted consequence to address that. So I would just say, long and short, it's just, I think the different components of PBIS, some are a little bit more challenging to implement, and I think it's the challenge is really in the high school, and not so much middle school, but I think it's really in the high schools. That's a challenge.
I think it was important to have a conversation. I wanted to recognize Dr. Patantas and Dr. Souter if they have anything regards to, if they wanted to add to their testimony.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, that was your description of the kinds of services that currently exist is really in depth, and I truly appreciate the insights that you've shared. I just have three, I don't know whether they're concerns or suggestions or insights that we have discovered in the research. And one, of course, is that punitive measures are not necessarily the most successful measures. And I know that you have to handle a lot of students, and you have to manage these, daily behavioral challenges in order to ensure the safety of other students in the school and such. But the research is beginning to tell us very loudly and clearly that moving kids in a positive direction and not engaging in the solution as, in a punitive framework works better and more successfully over time. The other insight that we have, we've always known this intuitively, but in relation to these particular issues that we're talking about, substance abuse, those kinds of issues, chronic, behavioral challenges, the students the student engagement in solution building is a positive step forward, and very often they become the last actors or stakeholders that are engaged in solution building. But the research again is clearly focusing on how students themselves are often better equipped to suggest how to address a challenge than the adults that manage the students. So that's another insight that we've gained that might be useful. And then the third, we've worked with many, many school systems, over 1,212 school systems in our collective engagement with schools, which totals nearly 100 years. So, I mean, we've been to all kinds of school settings, both very high-performing school settings as well as very low-performing school settings, throughout the country, in different parts of the world, and of course in all of our schools here on Guam. And one of the things that we worry about is that when students get suspended, they are removed from the school environment. And that would be the opportune time to engage them in participating in wellness curriculum, you know, and seize that opportunity so that kids, you know, sometimes kids will transgress because they know they can get a few days off, right? And that's opposite of what we want those suspensions to achieve. So again, if we could consider we've been to many schools where they have success curriculum and then they just park kids who are disobedient in their classes or who are acting up. They park kids in a room and they don't do anything but sleep or use their phones. They're not engaged in an alternate learning experience. And so we've learned that just doesn't work. You know, we need to engage them and provide an alternate curriculum for them. And maybe and then they can solution build as well. Mm-hmm. So those are some insights that we've gained from the research that, you know, we are happy to share.
No, thank you, Dr. Sauter. Those points that you bring up are on target. We make it an effort to work with our administrators to always leverage suspension days because Dr. Sauter is correct. Probably the worst thing you can do for a student is to remove them from their educational environment for any period of time. The maximum number of days we can suspend a student is 10 days. But even when I was a school principal or even an assistant principal in the school system, I was constantly leveraging suspension days, especially like if it's fighting or rioting, to leverage 5 days for the child and the parent to go and participate in anger management sessions or do something that's going to address the root cause of acting out violently. Or if it's substance use, getting the parent to agree to have the child go get screened to see if drug use is a serious issue or if it's just social pressure, experimenting kind of thing, or parent shadowing. Probably the most frightening thing for middle schoolers or high schools is to have their parents shadowing them in school. But we've done that because you're right. I mean, students sometimes will act out just because they know they're going to get suspended and have some time off. But usually when you get parents who are empowered to understand that parent shadowing is actually a very powerful deterrent to be able to take off from work and come in and do that, it can have a meaningful impact. So we completely agree. That's why positive behavioral intervention supports is the framework, because we agree that we need to focus on the positive. But unfortunately, children or young adults are going to act out, and so we do have to have punitive measures to address that, or at least to set a deterrent that we're zero tolerance for fighting or rioting or drug use or drug selling. I mean, there's a lot of different criminal behaviors that are happening in our school, even weapons possession. So we have to have very weighted consequences, but I think also aside from the weighted consequences needs to be interventions that try and address the root issue as to why this child or this young adult is acting out and getting in trouble. Because I think most kids, fundamentally, they don't wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, I want to fail today. It's just that through bad choices, you know, they end up failing or they end up getting in trouble. So we need to teach life skills, help students to be motivated about wanting to succeed academically in school, and that's part of it too, is getting them engaged academically so they have motivation to want to stay in school and succeed. But yes, thank you for the reinforcement of what the research is really saying, because we do push that with the administrators to do your best. I mean, we've had in-school suspensions. There's, you know, creative titles for these programs, but they are designed to do the opposite of what you referenced, because you're right. These rooms where the kids are just sitting there on their phones or doing something that's not productive, but to focus on life skills or do something very constructive to help these students understand, you know, how best to behave and you know, focus on being successful. So.
Appreciate that. So I just want to shift over to phone cell usage. I know the policy was just recently updated in 2025, but I guess considering the data that's coming out now, there's a lot of changes nationally as well as internationally about the impacts of cell phone use in instruction or in the school setting.
Right.
That's something definitely I would like to bring forward with the board as well as DOE, if there's a way. Do you think DOE is willing to, I guess, look at their policies again, considering this growing body of evidence of the harms from cell phone usage in the school setting?
Right. Well, with the way the policy is written right now, or the operating procedures, at the school administrator really can make that decision as to whether they want to restrict and not have cell phones on campus at all. But I think from the board's perspective, because like as you mentioned, most recently in 2025, they've reviewed the policy, and this policy has been on the books for several years. But because of what you mentioned, there's, you know, a lot of discussion in, you know, not just Guam's community, but throughout the United States in terms of whether or not cell phone use on campus is actually helping or hindering students from learning, as well as other issues, right, with social media and other influences that students can, you know, experience by using their phones. But the board did review this issue, and that was the issue at hand, right, with, again, what other districts are doing. But they did make a informed decision that they wanted to continue to allow students to use cell phones on campus with some minor guidance in terms of adding some clarifying language in terms of, you know, adding smartwatches to the, I guess, the definition or the understanding of cell phones. So it extends to smartwatches like I have on my wrist right now. And then being more clear that if it's not part of the teacher's lesson plan, where those cell phones have to be, which is not on their person, has to be in a backpack, has to be in a locker, cannot be on their person, you know, during the instructional time. But as I mentioned, really the issue is with the school administrator. And so if a school administrator working with their community make a decision that we don't want cell phones on campus, then they're authorized to make that call. As a matter of fact, Ocean View Middle School is one of those schools that has that policy, that they don't allow cell phones on campus. So I think the board's position is more not directing every school to be a certain way, but to empower the schools to, I guess, address the issue based on, you know, the community needs.
Yeah, that might be a good study to see how Ocean View is doing versus other schools that allow it. I mean, it's an opportunity to study how effective and,
well, she shared at the work session with the board how successful it has been. I mean, you talk to administrators, if you take away the cell phone, it actually addresses quite a bit of issue in terms of behavioral issues with kids and young adults. So, you know, it just gets down to that whole issue about, you know, wanting to make sure that our students are technologically literate, that they're able to safely use technology, cell phones, you know, internet behavior kind of thing. So I think there's, you know, those different camps, obviously, that have different opinions about the use of the technology. So yes, I agree with you. We should closely look at Ocean View Middle School and perhaps learn a lot about how banning cell phones has had an impact in terms of maybe student discipline issues.
Thank you. In regards to fentanyl, is there, I guess, efforts within DOE? I know nicotine vaping is the big problem right now, but are there any, I guess, proactive measures in regards to other drugs that are also very harmful?
Well, thank you for that. I think we're quite blessed that we don't have any issues with fentanyl. Typically, schools are a microcosm and usually a reflection of what's happening in the larger community. But I have to tell you that we're very good about tracking our data on substance use, and despite the fact that crystal methamphetamine is a big issue in our community, we don't have cases where we have students at least adjudicated or caught with crystal meth. Now, I'm confident that there are probably students that are using crystal methamphetamine, but our data does not have any cases where we've had kids that have been caught with that kind of substance. And of course, fentanyl being the more recent, substance that's out there, we don't see that in our schools either. But we do have Narcan. I know there was, I think it was the 37th Guam legislature that appropriated money for the Department of Education to purchase Narcan, and so we have that. Our Community Health Nursing Service Administrator, Julieta Kineni, has been working with the nurses to make sure that Narcan is available in case there is a fentanyl or some type of overdose. And it is addressed, I think, in the discussion about substance use, because obviously that is there, but in terms of actually seeing cases in our schools involving fentanyl, or even, like I said, crystal meth, or any other kind of the cocaine, and any of the more hardcore drugs, that's not the case. But obviously we are seeing cannabis in dab pens kind of issue, and so you're seeing vaping, and then you see the electronic delivery of THC as well in our schools, and more increasingly, actually, which is a concern for us.
Yes, thank you for all your work. So just a question regarding funding. So this is a question that one of the constituents had included in his testimony, that there has to be consistent funding for a lot of these initiatives, and just if you could maybe explain what type of funding is needed to, I guess, have a positive impact on reduction of substance use, and if it's more than funding, what other policies? I know you mentioned there's a bill that's being worked through in Senator Borja's office, but is there any other points that you think are opportunities to make this shift happen within the schools as far as improving mental health?
Well, I mean, I think most agencies are definitely open for more funding. The qualifier that Dr. Wampat indicated in her testimony was really about the $35 million that we have from the U.S. Department of Education, right, to fund different programs and initiatives. Substance use is definitely one of those areas. Matter of fact, our Enhancing Your Mental Health State was funded by the bipartisan grant. We received $1.6 million to do screening of students. So I believe there's sufficient amount of federal money, so, and we're very conscious about not trying to touch too much of the local money since there's not much there. So I don't think funding in that area is really the issue, more so than, again, continually trying to find those programs that are effective and work well with our students to help them make better choices and stay away from behavior that's going to derail them from finishing their education or being productive in society.
Yeah, I think to Superintendent Wampat's also point is that we want to make sure we don't go over this maintenance effort amount, yeah. Right? So that's, right. Yeah. Supplement, not supplant, right. Principle.
Yeah.
Correct. This question is for Department of Public Health. I know we did invite Guam Behavioral Health Wellness to provide testimony, so we look forward to seeing their testimony. But with the Division of Children's Wellness under the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services, just wondering, what are some of the initiatives in regards to mental health? What are some of the initiatives being implemented, if you can, Deputy.
Thank you, Senator. Directly with the school system, or?
Yes, school system or maybe independently.
Okay, well, we do receive child care development funds from our federal grantor, and we subgrant a lot of that money to our partners at Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness and to the Department of Youth Affairs for some of their programs. So most notably with GBWIC, we use that money for CCDF funding, the Child Care Development funding, for autism support and therapy and training for child care providers. We also use that money for a mobile crisis team. So if there's, if perhaps the school calls or our foster care shelter calls and there's a mental health emergency, then that mobile crisis clinic or mobile crisis center can respond with their team to the school or to the shelter. That's what I've got on top of my head, but with DYA, we provide them funding also for behavioral health support.
Yeah, thank you. And you know, one of the things I'm a proponent of is early childhood education, and I think it's really important about reaching, you know, the parents and the families, reaching out to them and supporting them in their needs. I think that's one of the root causes, possibly, is that, you know, maybe you can correct me, but.
Yes, well, early childhood exposure is something that we are using the CCDF money to target as well. Today, our Division of Children's Wellness held a conference for all our child care providers, daycares and centers for training on health and emergency preparedness. And we also provide support to individual families for resources. We have quarterly outreaches, more than quarterly outreaches in the community through our Early Learning Council. I know they were invited as well, but since they fall under the Division of Children's Wellness, we are providing testimony for them. And we work together with them in all of our different programs to go into the community, whether it's a community center or the schools even, to provide that kind of service. We also had a health fair today that gave all of that information and children's immunization at the PD social hall, the church social hall. So that's something that we're doing monthly in all of the villages, and the 7 different divisions of public health and social services are all participating, from Division of Children's Wellness to the Division of Public Health, who are giving out the immunizations and information for early childhood services.
Yeah, you know, that's great. I think, you know, the earlier the better, as far as establishing, you know, positive role models, you know, supports to families. I think that would go a long way into, you know, preventing negative behaviors, I feel. So yeah, definitely looking to see more from Department of Public Health in that realm. Dr. Napati Rivera, thank you for coming. And I know you're a teacher as well. And it maybe, I know you gave your testimony, but yeah, what do you experience in the classroom in regards to like cell phone usage, and or impacts you think that can be resolved or mitigated from, you know, more stricter policies with cell phone usage?
I do believe in enforcing that policy. It can be useful, however, there needs to be some boundaries. So we have to remember we're in an evolving technology society, so we can't remove it completely. We need to embrace what's there as a tool, but it's simply a tool, and use that to leverage and bridge gaps that may exist so we can be creative in utilizing it. We do have an existence with GDOE, like you had mentioned. I'm a ESL teacher coordinator for the Guam Department of Education. Like Mr. Anderson mentioned earlier, I service grades K through 5. They don't necessarily have cell phones, but they always talk about their older brothers and sisters having cell phones, and they've been on it. And I said, well, you need to be responsible. And they would mention these things like K-pop demon. And I'm like, okay, let's try to make sure that we remember to stay focused on our work. And then if your parents say it's okay, then sure, but still you need to remember education is important. So I always enforce that. But aside from being an ESL teacher at GDOE, I'm also a board member of the Guam Public Library System, a board member of the Guam Council of the International Literacy Association, and I serve as the D204 Lions International Reading Action Program Chair. So I speak in behalf of literacy at the same time. And I do believe that we definitely can use what we know about cell phones, but as Dr. Salder and Dr. B mentioned as well, there are guidelines that need to be followed. So I believe we can't completely remove it, but we can use it as a tool to enable our students to excel. Yeah. So it could be a tool.
Right, yes, correct. I know there's also the IEP, right, if that's needed. Of course, we can't eliminate it.
Yes,
but,
exactly.
But there are, it seems like the evidence is showing that the stricter policies are more effective.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for your testimonies. We're going to move on to the next agenda item. But for those that want to submit testimony, they can submit it to, address it to myself, Senator Sabina Flores Perez, 710 Marine Corps Drive, Suite 303, Hagåtña, Guam, 96910. The testimonies can be delivered also to the Guam Congress Building or emailed to office.senatorperez@guamlegislature.gov. Being that there are no further questions or testimonies, Resolution 126-38 is duly heard, and the time is now 3:23 p.m. So we are going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is to hear Resolution 127-38, relative to empowering the Guam Department of Education to advance education equity and academic success by establishing an early childhood literacy and parenting curriculum for pregnant and parenting students, examine the role and develop policies and/or curriculum pertaining to artificial intelligence, and strengthening supports to mitigate social promotion while ensuring all students meet essential learning standards. So really quickly, a resolution was introduced by Senator Sabina Flores Perez, Shelly V. Calvo, Chris Barnett, Vincent A.V. Borja, Speaker Frank Blas Jr., Vice Speaker Tony Atta, and Senators Therese Terlaje, William Parkinson, and Tina Rose Muña Barnes. Resolution 127 addresses the interrelated priorities: strengthening support for pregnant and parenting students, establishing a thoughtful framework for artificial intelligence in education, and mitigating social promotion through evidence-based intervention. First, Guam continues to experience high rates of teenage pregnancy than the national average. The Department of Public Health and Social Service reports that thousands of young mothers, infants, and children are served annually through its Title V Maternal and Child Health Program. Pregnant and parenting students often face stigma, child care challenges, and interrupted academic progress. Research from jurisdictions such as New York City's Living for the Young Family through Education program and Washington State's Graduation, Reality, and Dual Role Skills program demonstrates that school-based models integrating childcare, parenting, instruction, and literacy coursework significantly improve graduation outcomes and promote healthy early childhood development. Early literacy is one of the strongest predictors of long-term academic achievement. Students who are not proficient readers by the end of the third grade are significantly at greater risk of academic disengagement. Establishing an early childhood literacy and parenting curriculum strengthens intergenerational education equity. The second major component of this resolution addresses artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence technologies are rapidly evolving and increasingly embedded in educational tools, research platforms, and conversational systems. However, recent national developments underscore the need for guardrails. Multiple states have enacted or proposed legislation to regulate artificial intelligence chatbots, particularly those offering mental health-related interactions. Several tragic cases have emerged in which young people died by suicide following prolonged interactions with AI chatbots that simulated human relationships. The American Psychological Association has warned that AI chatbots by design are designed to be agreeable and may create a false sense of intimacy and trust. Experts have testified before the United States Senate that such systems may lack true empathy, clinical judgment, and accountability. Vulnerable youth may interpret algorithms' responses as validation rather than guidance toward professional care. The Federal Trade Commission has launched inquiries into companies developing AI-powered chatbots, questioning what safeguards are in place to protect children. States such as New York and Utah have enacted laws requiring chatbots to disclose that they are not human and to detect potential self-harm conversations. Illinois and Nevada have prohibited certain uses of AI in behavioral health contexts. These legislative efforts reflect four major concerns: professional oversight, harm prevention, patient autonomy, and data governance. Resolution 127-38 does not prohibit AI. Instead, it encourages the Guam Department of Education to develop policies that guide the responsible, equitable, and transparent use of AI in Guam's public schools. It supports an age-appropriate curriculum that addresses how AI works, its historical development, applications, career pathways, regulation, and social and environmental impacts. This approach ensures that students are not merely consumers of AI technologies, but informed and critical participants in an evolving digital ecosystem. Third component of this resolution is social promotion. National Assessment of Educational Progress data indicate post-pandemic declines in reading and mathematics proficiency nationwide. Automatic advancement without mastery risks compounding learning gaps. At the same time, research shows that grade retention alone cannot increase dropout risk, particularly among low-income and minority students. So evidence-based multi-tiered systems of support provide early identification of struggling students, targeted tutoring, summer learning opportunities, and progress monitoring using multiple measures. Resolution 127-38 encourages GDOE to adopt such a framework to ensure fairness, consistency, and academic integrity. Together, these three components advance educational equity by supporting vulnerable student populations, ensuring responsible technology integration, and strengthening standard-based promotion policies. So this time I would like to receive testimony. I'd like to recognize Chris Anderson, representing Guam Department of Education.
Thank you, Senator Perez. With the magic of technology, I was sent the testimony for 127-38, so I'll read it from my phone. Alpha Senator Sabina Flores Perez and members of the Senate, I respectfully submit this testimony in support of resolution number 127-38, which seeks to empower the Guam Department of Education to advance educational equity and academic success by establishing an early childhood literacy and parenting curriculum for pregnant and parenting students, examining the role of artificial intelligence in developing related policies and curriculum, and strengthening supports to mitigate social promotion while ensuring all students meet essential learning standards. This resolution reflects a forward-thinking and student-centered approach to education in Guam. First, establishing an early childhood literacy and parenting curriculum for pregnant and parenting students addresses an often overlooked population. By equipping young parents with literacy skills and evidence-based parenting knowledge, we not only support their academic continuation and graduation, but also strengthen early learning foundations for their children. This dual generation strategy promotes long-term educational attainment and breaks cycles of intergenerational academic struggle. Second, examining the role of artificial intelligence and developing policies and curriculum guidance is both timely and necessary. AI is rapidly transforming education, workforce readiness, and the global economy. Providing clear policies and instructional frameworks will help ensure ethical use, data privacy protection, and responsible integration into teaching and learning. Moreover, thoughtful AI curriculum development aligns with our broader goal of preparing students for college and career pathways in emerging and high-demand fields. Third, strengthening supports to mitigate social promotion while ensuring mastery of essential learning standards reinforces academic integrity and student success. Students must receive targeted interventions, data-driven instruction, and aligned assessments so that promotion reflects readiness, not merely seat time. Ensuring that every student meets essential learning standards upholds equity and protects the value of a Guam High School diploma. While I support the intent and direction of this resolution, I respectfully caution the legislature to carefully consider the fiscal and legal implications of enacting mandates that may unintentionally jeopardize federal funding. The Guam Department of Education receives substantial federal grants funds under consolidated programs. These funds are governed by strict supplemental, not supplant provisions. If activities such as the development of AI policies, early literacy programming, or intervention systems are currently funded through federal grants and subsequently become statutory requirements under local law, those same expenditures may be deemed supplanting. Once an activity is mandated by local law, it may longer qualify as a supplemental use of federal funds, thereby placing the department at risk of losing eligibility to use federal funding for those expenses. For example, if AI policy development or curriculum design is written into a federal grant application as an allowable activity and later becomes codified in local statute, federal auditors could determine that local funds must bear that cost. This could result in disallowed costs, repayment obligations, or reduced flexibility in our consolidated grant programs. Therefore, I respectfully recommend that any implementing legislation include language that preserves federal compliance, protects maintenance of effort requirements, and allows the department flexibility in funding sources. Close coordination with grant administrators and federal programs officers will be essential to ensuring alignment without triggering supplanting violations. In closing, Resolution number 12738 sets a strong vision for equity innovation and academic excellence in Guam's public education system. With careful attention to federal compliance safeguards, this measure can empower DOE to move forward responsibly and sustainably. Sidzus Maasi for the opportunity to provide testimony. Sinceramente, Judith Wampat, Acting Superintendent.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anderson, on behalf of the Superintendent of DOE and DOE school system as well. I'll definitely ask questions later. At this point, I'd like to recognize Deputy Director Shelton.
Thank you very much, Senator Perez. Again, I'm reading testimony on behalf of Director Arreola. Hafaday, Senator Sabina Flores Perez, and honorable members of the 38th Guam Legislature, the Division of Children's Wellness under the Guam Department of Public Health and Social Services respectfully submits this testimony in support of Resolution number 127-38. Within the Division of Children's Wellness, the Bureau of Social Services Administration's BOSA mission is simple but vital: to keep children safe and strengthen the family they live in. Child Protective Services sees firsthand the challenges that young parents face, which is why we support this resolution, which aims to provide school-based support for pregnant and student parents. Guam's teen pregnancy rate remains higher than the national average. When a young parent drops out of school due to a lack of childcare or support, it often leads to long-term financial hardship. Resolution 127-38 seeks to create an early childhood literacy and parenting curriculum for pregnant and parenting students. The implementation of such a curriculum would increase the chances of graduation, which would help break the cycle of poverty that often leads to family stress and CPS involvement. Our goal is always to prevent child neglect before it happens. This resolution provides a wraparound support like childcare and academic help right where students are, in school. When a student parent feels supported instead of judged, they are better equipped to provide a stable, loving home. This aligns with our mandate under Guam law to protect children by supporting their parents. This isn't just about the parents, it's about the children. By focusing on early literacy and stable environments, we are ensuring that the next generation of Guam's children starts life on the right foot. We respectfully urge the adoption of Resolution Number 127-38 and thank you for your continued leadership in advancing policies that safeguard and promote the health of Guam's children and families. Sejus Masi for the opportunity to provide testimony. Signed, Theresa C. Areola, Director.
Thank you so much, Deputy Shelton, for that testimony. At this time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Napati. I know you provided testimony earlier, so there's no need unless you wanted to add.
I'm an early childhood educator as well. I believe in early childhood literacy, and it's not just beneficial for children and families, it is also a wise investment in our island's future. Studies indicate that for every dollar invested in early childhood programs, there is a significant return in the form of reduced social costs, higher graduation rates, and a more skilled workforce. So by supporting our youngest learners, we are building a stronger, healthier, and more prosperous Guam for generations to come. And that's the bottom line. We want to ensure that we empower our families and have that early intervention that enables them to be equipped with what they need to be able to be productive citizens. It starts as early as in the womb. Sejus Masi.
Sejus Masi for your supplemental testimony and your commitment to this lifelong passion for early childhood education. All right. At this time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Laura Souter.
Donkuna Sejus Masi, Senator. My name is Laura M. Torres Souter. My husband and educational consulting and training partner, Dr. Samuel Betances, and I have worked closely with Senator Perez on the need to develop early childhood literacy as a key to transforming the trajectory of students in their educational journey through Guam's public schools. Many of our children suffer from a lack of authentic literacy skills and are advanced from grade to grade without having grade-level proficiencies. While social promotion is generally viewed as a compassionate solution, students graduate without grade-level skills and are nonetheless expected to perform in the marketplace as if they had mastered those basic skills. If we can mitigate and address this challenge in early childhood, children entering our school system will have a higher rate of success. We support Resolution Number 12738 for GDOE to adopt and advance policies towards supporting academic success of pregnant and parenting students. The literature documents that female students who get pregnant are likely to drop out. One report stated young men and young women combined, and 1/3 of young women said that becoming a parent was a major factor in their decision to leave school. This does not have to be the case. Encouraging pregnant and parenting students to continue in school and graduate will provide a positive future for their children and our island community. These young parents can become more economically independent and self-sufficient. Putting together policies to support the journey for future success through education is the solution. The U.S. Department of Education provides guidance in their publication on supporting the academic success of pregnant and parenting students. While some of their recommendations are a little outdated and have to be adjusted to our Guam reality, the steps for putting in place policies that support pregnant and parenting students are sound and promising. I'll just share a few examples. These might seem trivial, but they're essential to the well-being of pregnant and parenting students. A school might require, for example, to provide a larger desk, allow frequent trips to the bathroom, or permit temporary access to elevators. Pregnant girls will say they quit school because they couldn't reach the bathrooms, yes. So that's, a practical, very small but significant set of actions that could be taken. Students can request to participate in workshops or to hear from speakers who can share information on how to provide support to pregnant and parenting students. And using previously, students who have graduated successfully who were pregnant when they were in school or who were parents when they were in school are very valuable resources because they have real life experience on these matters. A pregnant student might be allowed to remain in her regular classes and school if she chooses. I know that in public schools they are allowed to remain, and so that's good. School officials must take prompt and effective steps to end pregnancy-related harassment. You wouldn't think that young pregnant girls get harassed, but their testimonies themselves attest to this fact that they do get harassed. And the hostile environment created by that harassment needs to be focused on and removed. Schools can provide parents with information they can understand in their own language regarding the availability of programs and services that encourage and assist all students to stay in school and maintain their educational progress regardless of pregnancy or parenthood. The cultural stigma of becoming pregnant while you're unwed also contributes to the shame that then drives young girls to quit school. Early childhood literacy is key to academic success. If young parents become aware of the role they can play in the academic trajectory of their children by engaging them in rich discussions and early exposure to books and reading, they can learn how to end the cycle of academic failure by becoming their children's first teacher. This is especially important as young parents often depend on their own parents or grandparents to provide childcare, which can set back the literacy development of their young children due to a lack of understanding of the importance of early childhood literacy in the school life of a child. Teenage pregnancy on Guam has always been exceedingly high. Resolution 12738 addresses this challenge with pregnant and parenting high school students who are disproportionately represented in our school population. They are often the children of teenage parents themselves who never knew how to prioritize early childhood literacy. We now have the opportunity to redirect this intergenerational cycle and break it. Thank you.
Ms. Masi, Dr. Souter. So I appreciate everybody's testimony today. There was one question I have for Dr. maybe Patantes, I know regards to social promotion, and if you can provide some sort of history on how this was used and why it's so important to address it today. I know many teachers have spoken to me about how social promotion is really impacting their classrooms, but perhaps if you can provide that backdrop of how it was used after the war and then why that policy is, very difficult, should be done away with, I suppose.
Yes.
Or addressed.
Senator, there have always been a couple of tracking strategies used in school. There were people who were basically developed to exercise leadership as accomplished professionals in the complexity of systems and organizations. And then there were people who needed a strong back and a willingness to work. And they can still get into the economy and take care of their families. And eventually we went from going into the agricultural, the industrial, and complexity of society, which require additional skills. World War II, in particular, became very important because most of the world experienced destruction. Japan was in ashes. Europe was basically destroyed. There were a lot of countries in the world that needed to rebuild. The United States of America was the most powerful and most productive country that took a role in rebuilding that world, it took 40 years, for example, to get Germany back to become functional as a high productive society. During that time, there was a lot of work. You simply were sent to trade schools. You were able to participate in learning how you didn't need a high school diploma. You needed to be able to follow instructions. As the society got more complex and the economy became more global and became more technological, there were greater needs for people to get more education and so on. So what happened is that while before, when the immigrants came, they could take several generations from the time they set foot in the United States, enter the economy with a strong back and willingness to work, and eventually made more progress. Social promotion meant that there were students who could go to school but did not have to finish. We now have a situation where we do a lot of the cheap work gets done in other countries. So you don't, so in a sense, you don't really need people to be working, being very productive in a society that at this particular moment, we get a lot of our work done, for example, in many other countries overseas. So what happens now is that in terms of education, people needed a college degree if they were going to become competent professionals, or they could actually work in a factory. For example, if you went to Detroit, you were able to work in those factories, systems and lines of production, and you didn't need a lot of college education. Today, if you go to I think it's in South Carolina, North Carolina, where there are German automobile companies there, and you need more than high school diploma. You need a college degrees, because today when you put a car together, they're computers talking to each other and related. So the society needs more complex people that are educated. So if you have a lot of people that basically are not getting that education, but you don't want to hold them back, you practice social promotion. Social promotion means that you can get a high school diploma, but not be qualified for high-tech responsibilities that require sometimes not a college degree, but more than a high school diploma at grade level. So we are living in a situation where here's the way the public school system works. If you are a student in public schools or in one of the charter schools, less so than in the private, more elite schools, okay? The idea is that the reason, if your parents have graduated from college and high school, they're middle income families, and they have an abundance of social capital, they will help you. If your teacher gives you homework, your parents can help you at home. And without that help, you can't get through. But if you then go to school and your parents can't give you what they don't have, like my father came from poverty and we lost our grandfather and so on, he just couldn't help me with homework. My mother couldn't help me with the homework. So, and the teachers gave me tests that were made with the assumption that there was somebody always there to help. So what happens is that we are providing high school diplomas to young people that never received the help to make it possible for them to graduate at grade level. Social promotion then is a kind way of making these students not feel bad because you don't want them to fail, but you give them a high school diploma that doesn't really qualify them to knock on the door of greater opportunities, either at college or community college or high technology education. And in that respect, social promotion is not good because you won't be able to find the opportunities to get there. It's a bit complex, but the fact of the matter is that we need more than just giving a young person a high school diploma. Right now, only 14% of the students on Guam graduate at grade level. 14%, on average. So that means that, that while they're getting diplomas, they're not getting the education they need for their next chapter in their development in a high-tech society and for a global economy.
Yes, thank you for that. And I think in our discussions, there was when we talk about social capital, right? There's this literate poor and literate rich households where the literate rich households come school ready, but the literate poor households are not school ready. And so they're ready behind when they enter school, which is so important that we approach literacy at younger ages. And that I feel that's going to be transformative for us, from, parenting pregnant mothers and parenting, students, for instance. The other thing that was mentioned is this level of Tier 1 and Tier 2 English skills, and how do we address students that are not ready for school? And maybe you can talk about that, Dr. Betances, what that means, because we want students to be, at grade level, right, in their literacy skills. And there are interventions, and I know the resolution does talk about certain interventions, but if you can kind of highlight what it means to be Tier 1 versus Tier 2.
My partner can do that better than me, I think.
Okay, very often we think that children who don't know how to speak English have a greater disadvantage than any English-speaking student, and that is not the case. Research, evidence-based research shows us without a doubt that the greatest gap, the achievement gap, is most pronounced among English speakers, children who speak Tier 1 English, which is the English of, just basic communication. You don't have to know how to say it grammatically correctly. You can speak in all kinds of shorthands and shortcuts and still get your message across. So basic communication in English is Tier 1. The situation is that all schools, all classrooms have teachers who teach in Tier 2 language. All tests are based on Tier 2 language skills. All textbooks are written in Tier 2 language level framework. So if I speak Tier 1 English, and my parents speak Tier 1 English, and that's all I know, I come to school, I'm able to communicate, basically, but I can't absorb what's being taught me because I don't understand what the teacher is saying. I don't understand what I'm reading in the textbooks, and then how can I perform well in a test? So the biggest achievement gap exists between Tier 1 speakers and Tier 2 speakers, and that's hopeful, because if we can move Tier 1 speakers into Tier 2 level capacity, they will perform. They do perform. The other thing that research tells us is that children who speak more than one language always outperform monolingual students. So we have to get rid of the notion that speaking another language interferes with English. That's what screwed us up with Chamorro, right? Because our parents were told that if you want your children to succeed in school, speak only English to them. And Chamorro was lost. But what we've learned in the literature is that different parts of the brain are used when you use a different language. And consequently, the brain develops, you grow your intelligence, and you grow your capacity to learn at an exponential level. So we need to stop discouraging people from speaking other languages because it enhances their capacity to learn. So there are lots of little things, or they're not so little, but there are lots of insights that we've gained from current literature that can help us. The most fundamental thing that we have learned in our work, Senator, and in our research is that the achievement gap is well pronounced by age 3, well before the time a child enters the kindergarten classroom. If that is the case, we need to focus on those pre-kinder age, that pre-kinder age group, and that's why that early learning, the early childhood literacy program is so critical. If we could get universal early childhood, education on Guam, it would really transform the trajectory of our children, and they will perform. They will perform if they are literate, And so that's the key. We need to help pregnant girls, young parents, older parents to understand the role that they need to play in the development of their children prior to their going to school. It's a crying shame. We hear this from teachers all the time as we conduct training. These kids in the 3rd grade, 4th grade don't know their alphabet yet. And yet they're supposed to learn how to read and read to learn by 3rd grade. How is this possible if you can't recognize the letters? And these are our children. That's the other thing that we need to pay attention to. Yes, children who come from other islands, from other areas that don't speak English, English is not their first language, they do have a challenge. But the greatest challenge exists with our kids, Chamorro kids, Filipino kids, kids who were born on Guam, who live on Guam. That's where, this is not someone else's kid's problem. This is our kid's problem. And Micronesian children are our kids too, because we're Micronesians all. So we just have to get over some of these ideas that prevent us, or these blinders that prevent us from seeing the reality, because there's a lot that we can do to change that trajectory.
Yes, Doctor, but thank you so much, Dr. Sauter.
Let me just add value, if I may. Currently, there are no teacher training programs that prepares our educators to educate children who do not have an abundance of social capital from parents from middle-income families who graduated from high school and college, who know how to prepare them to be learning ready, to learn in the way that teachers teach. And consequently, when they go to school and they have not that help at home, they fail for not knowing what they haven't been taught. Here's the deal. We now have enough information. For example, here on Guam, we've been working with a small group, evidence-based, in Simon Sanchez High School. We were taking these students who basically are Tier 1 speakers, whose parents have not graduated from college or high school, and who may not even know how to speak English very well. And they do very well on a voluntary basis, despite what's going on in the classrooms, because we meet with them on a voluntary basis. We have opportunities for them to practice what is called close reading, to collaborate with each other, to help each other, and to become interdependent with each other, so that the very young people themselves in the school who know it, we team them up with the students that don't know it as well. And one of the outcomes is there is an amazing set of evidence from the very few that we now have evidence that it will work. We do not know, and right now with the dismantling of the United States Office of Education, there's going to be fewer amounts of resources. So we have to be very strategic. If we can get them in preschool and we can get them reading, and one last comment, if a student watches a video on media of any type or any program that they do not discuss with a human being about what they're learning and what it says and how to think and what are the new words, they will forget. We have to figure out how to get students to dedicate multiple senses to educating and understanding what's going on so that they can develop their mind. Every new word that a student learns by growing their vocabulary increases their intelligence. And we need to pay more attention to that because the future is ahead of schedule and we can get it done. I was a high school dropout, abandoned as a child, Tier 1 Spanish and Tier 1 English, and I was able to get the kind of coaching and mentoring that I needed that eventually allowed me to continue to graduate from high school, college, and earn 2 graduate degrees from Harvard University and publish several books. My point is that we now have the talent on the island, we have the greatest need in our homeland, and we can get this thing done. But learning must never cease, even when schools are not in session. What we do in the summer to promote learning and reading and etc. will help us greatly to achieve those goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Betances. That's very amazing. Every time I hear you talk, I feel like we can solve this problem. So yeah, but yeah, keep on. So if there are no further testimonies, I don't have any further questions, but I do look forward to further collaborations with DOE and everybody, all the stakeholders. So first of all, thank you for taking the time on Friday to come and provide testimony. Resolution 127-38 recognizes that educational equity in the modern era requires thoughtful action across multiple fronts. Supporting pregnant and parenting students strengthens families and improves literacy outcomes. Developing clear policies around artificial intelligence protects students from harm while preparing them for future careers. Implementing evidence-based intervention frameworks ensures that grade advancement reflects meaningful learning. Testimony from public health leaders reinforced the importance of wraparound school-based supports for student parents as a strategy to break intergenerational cycles of hardship and strengthen early childhood development. Educators further affirm the need for responsible forward-looking guidance on the use of artificial intelligence in classrooms. At the same time, testimony emphasized that sustainable implementation requires funding, staffing, training time, and accountability mechanisms. And these considerations will inform ongoing oversight and coordination as this resolution progresses. National developments regarding AI therapy, chatbots, and youth mental health demonstrates that emerging technologies require proactive governance, particularly when minors are involved. And by encouraging responsible policy development rather than reactive crisis management, this resolution positions Guam to act with foresight. By empowering the Guam Department of Education to implement these initiatives, this resolution strengthens educational outcomes across all grade levels and promotes long-term economic and social stability for our community. Thank you again for being here and providing testimony, and I would like to encourage others to continue to submit testimony. Please address Senator Sabina Flores Perez, 710 Marine Corps Drive, Suite 303A, Hagåtña, Guam 96910, or the testimonies can be hand-delivered to the Guam Congress building or emailed to office.senatorperez@guamlegislature.gov. If there are no further testimonies or questions, Resolution 127-38 COR is duly heard. This public hearing is now adjourned. The time is 4:05 p.m. Sizos Masi, and take care. Thank you.